In the early hours of January 31, 2021, a peaceful church service was shattered when a 51-year-old woman was shot dead. And to make it all worse, the service was live-streamed on Facebook. The police were immediately called to the Agape Christian Fellowship Church in Falmouth, Trelawney, only to find a horrifying scene. Lying on the floor of the church, covered in multiple gunshot wounds and lifeless, was Andrea Lowe Garwood. As the police scrambled for answers, they would uncover a shocking discovery. The person behind it all was her own son. But the horrors did not end there, because behind the execution was a twisted web of betrayal that no one could have expected. This is the life and death of Andrea Lowe Garwood. This tragedy takes place in Trelawney, on Jamaica's northwestern coast, which is a quiet, rural parish known for its lush landscapes, strong community ties, and relatively low crime rate. With its capital as Falmouth, life there moves at an easy pace, shaped by tradition and trust. But that peace would be shattered and infected in the most unthinkable way. Crime was spreading rapidly across Jamaica. In January 2021 alone, 113 people were murdered, 24 in a single weekend, and even a curfew couldn't stop the brutal killing of 5 homeless individuals in the capital. That same wave of violence crept into the quiet town of Falmouth, adding another name to the growing statistic: Andrea Lowe Garwood. Born on May 27, 1969, Andrea Lowe Garwood was a deeply admired and cherished individual. From a young age, she was full of passion for life. She was a girl who knew what she wanted and was determined to get it. With unwavering faith and a tireless spirit, this little girl was well on her way to building a successful career and leaving a lasting impact on everyone she met. Andrea later secured a position at the National Commercial Bank in Montego Bay, where she dedicated over 20 years as the regional credit card manager. Her colleagues described her as exceptionally hardworking, committed to excellence, and a natural leader. Even her boss said that she could not relate to mediocre work and was widely considered the life of the party. This enthusiasm and compassion touched many and soon opened the doors to a very significant relationship in her life. Andrea met and fell in love with her first husband. Though much of their life together remained private, Andrea shared a quiet, meaningful life with her first husband, a chapter that gave her one of her greatest joys: her son, Andre Williams. Named after his mother, she completely adored her son, and he became the center of her world, and this was evident in everything. Andrea often referred to him affectionately as her nice, clean pickney, and frequently prayed for his protection and guidance. This deep maternal bond was a cornerstone of her life, as she would move mountains to raise and nurture him right. So, she made a huge move. At the age of 47, Andrea moved from St. James to Trelawney, where she built a wonderful community for her little family. She became an active member of the Agape Christian Fellowship Church, where she was recognized for her proactive and uplifting nature. She was constantly celebrated for her warmth and generosity. Don Henry, the church secretary, described her as a real go-getter who brought energy and professionalism to every task. After years of focusing on her faith, family, and career, Andrea began to feel the quiet ache of something missing: love. Having been hurt before, she wasn't willing to settle, so she carefully wrote out a list of everything she wanted in a man. Gradually, however, doubts crept in about ever finding that man. Just when she began to forget that dream, life gave her a pleasant surprise. Jeffrey Garwood was a tour bus operator with a warm and kind spirit. He was 8 years older than Andrea, and they were a perfect match made in heaven. From the moment they met, Andrea and Jeffrey instantly shared mutual affection and so many other experiences and values. Just like Andrea, Jeffrey had a profound devotion to God and was passionate about his faith. Also, he understood her struggles of parenting as he had 4 young boys of his own. He held an unwavering love and devotion towards them, which Andrea fell in love with.
Many men are trying, but she needs to be alone and wine and dine because she's royal, yeah, so royal, yeah. I want her in my life, and everywhere you want, so divine. The way she moves, you are only. She lies it.
Everything was perfect, maybe a little too perfect, and Andrea started to worry. She was worried about the speed of the relationship, but their love was clear to see and their devotion to each other was deep. Since everything was going smoothly and he was a literal manifestation of what she wanted, she gave in to the love.
Yes, I say no matter what them say, no matter what them do, I love you forever, still want you.
Soon, Andrea's family multiplied as she and Jeffrey united in the ultimate bond. In 2017, they tied the knot at the altar and were joined as husband and wife. Andrea and Jeffrey then bought a home together in Stonebrook Manor, a prestigious gated residential community located in Florence Hall near Falmouth in Trelawney Parish, Jamaica. This was the start of a new beginning. The life in a blended family was not as easy as she thought. Although Andrea was delighted to be a part of this new family and explore her new relationships with her 4 new sons, she eventually admitted that blending into Jeffrey's family wasn't easy. His children were already grown and keenly aware that Andrea wasn't their mother, creating a distance that wasn't easy to bridge. Still, Jeffrey's unwavering love gave her the strength to keep reaching out and try to mirror the bond she shared with them. But just as she began to find her rhythm in this new family, the love that held her steady was torn away. In July 2020, Jeffrey Garwood kissed his wife goodbye and left for what should have been just another day on the road. That ordinary routine turned fatal when he was killed in a motor vehicle crash in St. James. It was reportedly caused by a getaway car filled with men fleeing the police. The tragedy shook Andrea to her core, never knowing that this violent, unexpected end was a chilling foreshadowing of her similar fate.
That began my journey of painful grief. Hot. And as a church sister of mine, she said it beautiful. She said, Andrea, you cannot explain grief to people. They have to experience it. And so for me, the experiencing of this grief, it comes with a lot of mixed emotions that I can't explain. But you notice that song, Gracefully Broken?
Yes.
I am intent on being gracefully broken. Yes.
After Jeffrey's sudden passing, the reading of his will revealed that a significant portion of his property, including their home, had been left to Andrea, along with provisions for some of his sons. But Jeffrey's final act of love and protection quickly sparked a deep and dangerous conflict. Not everyone was pleased with the terms, and their outrage wasn't quiet. It was loud, bitter, and would soon take a dark and unforgiving turn. Almost immediately after Jeffrey's death, Andrea started receiving death threats from some of Jeffrey's relatives, demanding she sell the house and share the proceeds. The threats escalated to the point where Andrea had to request police protection just to attend her husband's funeral. Despite the danger, she stood her ground, unaware that this bitter dispute was spiraling toward a deadly end. Andrea remained unyielding and chose to continue to live her life as best she could. She went to her office, did her job, met up with friends, and of course, found solace in her faith by attending church every Sunday. But this predictable routine would make her an easy target for her enemies to attack. On January 31st, 2021, the heated struggles that tore through the Lowe Garwood family exploded when Andrea attended church as usual. Not wanting to leave any of their members out, Agape Christian Fellowship Church streamed their service on Facebook Live for everyone to participate. The service wrapped everyone up and immersed them in such worship and serenity that almost nobody noticed when a man who was very oddly dressed entered, except one man. Some minutes after 9 a.m., a senior church member noticed a young man walk in with a hat and a handkerchief tied around his face to improvise a mask. He quietly took a seat behind Andrea and seemed to join the service. The elder briefly considered confronting him about his unusual and inappropriate attire, but chose to wait until the service ended. It was a moment of hesitation that would quickly haunt him forever. The service continued to progress peacefully, but this peace would not last. Soon, the service moved to the praise and worship session, and that was when he struck. In a single fluid motion, the man stood and unleashed bullets into Andrea's upper body, shattering the calm with terrifying precision. Though the moment itself wasn't captured on camera, the live stream recorded the deafening sound of gunfire, followed by chilling screams and chaos as panic erupted inside the sanctuary. The shooter bolted from the scene, but his escape would prove far messier and far less clean than he had planned. As he ran outside to make his escape, an off-duty officer who was in attendance at the service fired a gunshot into the air to scare him enough for an arrest. While the shot did startle the shooter, he quickly recovered and made it to his getaway vehicle, but he had left behind a monumental piece of evidence that would lead to his capture. The shooter dropped his phone but had no time to pick it up before jumping into a white Toyota Allion and was quickly driven away by his accomplice. Inside the church, 51-year-old Andrea Lowe Garwood bled out on the floor, and by the time help could arrive, she was pronounced dead at the scene. As the church's silence shattered under the weight of terror, the shaken congregation would later piece together harrowing details that set the police on a swift path to justice. But far from the chaos of the sanctuary, another critical moment was unfolding, one that would soon crack the case wide open. In the quiet streets of Rose Heights, patrol officers spotted a white Toyota Allion with a driver acting suspiciously. The man suddenly and frantically jumped from the vehicle and desperately attempted to flee. This raised immediate alarms, and the police chased after him to get to the truth. Upon catching him, they questioned his behavior, but these questions alerted the culprit to the fact that the police were still unaware of the crime he was connected to, so the officers let him go after he made up a flimsy excuse. Little did they know that they had unwittingly allowed a key player to slip away, but that fleeting moment will later help the police close in faster than he ever imagined. With the news of the shooting spreading through the city and the nation like wildfire, it was not long before the patrol officers pieced together that the vehicle they had stopped earlier was very closely connected to the crime. But in a city full of similar cars, a member of the congregation shared a tip that would completely accelerate the manhunt. Fortunately, amidst all the chaos, someone had been able to record the plate number of the car as it sped off. Now armed with the dropped phone, eyewitness accounts, police accounts, and the plate number, evidence mounted, and the manhunt went into overdrive. Utilizing witness testimony, surveillance footage, and forensic evidence, law enforcement identified and traced the vehicle. It had apparently been rented 2 days prior to the murder by a man called Leon Hines, who had reported the car stolen. They instantly dug further into him, and what they would discover would only leave them even more confused. Leon Hines was a 23-year-old storekeeper employed at the Cornwall Regional Hospital and had no prior criminal record. He was from Rose Heights, Montego Bay, and his colleagues only spoke of him in high praise, highlighting his quietness and dedication to good work. So why would such a stellar citizen involve himself in such a brutal murder? The police instantly theorized that he was under the influence of his partner. Leon had not been the one to pull the trigger. He was only the getaway driver. There was still a bigger criminal, and the police had made no progress in nabbing him, until one of the patrol officers made a startling discovery that would secure their arrest. Recalling the peculiarity of their stop with Leon, they replayed the incident to find a clue. It was then that one of the officers suspected that he might have disposed of some evidence while frantically trying to get away. Immediately, the cops pounced on this clue and would finally get a break in the case from that scene. Authorities coordinated with multiple police units to search key locations across Montego Bay and surrounding areas. Upon searching the location of the stop, they were able to retrieve a phone that had been disposed of in a nearby bush. It was a thorough search of this phone that would completely tie Leon Hines to the case, despite his earlier stolen car report, as all the content of the phone went directly back to him. Finally, after days of surveillance and tip-offs, officers made their arrest. The criminals were arrested in a home in Kingston, Jamaica. There was Leon Hines, the young storekeeper, together with the shooter, who was then identified as Dwight Prince Bingham, a construction worker. They were instantly taken into custody, but they were not alone. There was a third detained accomplice, whose identity would send the family into shock. Among those arrested was Andrea's stepson, 29-year-old Javon Garwood, also known as Janoy. Frustrated and bitter over being completely excluded from his father's will, he openly voiced his intense dissatisfaction. His deep resentment drove him to orchestrate the assassination of the person who stood to inherit his father's estate, his stepmother.
3 persons in custody and about to have a 4th in custody for this killing. We pretty much have this case solved at the moment.
They were swiftly charged individually. Leon Hines was charged with murder, illegal possession of a firearm, accessory before the fact, accessory after the fact, and conspiracy to murder. Javon Garwood was charged with murder and conspiracy to murder, and Dwight Prince Bingham was charged with murder and illegal possession of a firearm. Their court dates were set, and they were denied bail, keeping them away from society. But there was already widespread unrest in the community, and the death of Andrea Lowe Garwood would trigger an uprising. The community greatly criticized the government over the rapid rise in violence in the country. In Falmouth and surrounding areas, residents were horrified that such a violent act could occur during a peaceful church service, a place considered sacred and safe. But within the family, the emotions ran more deeply and more complexly. Andre Williams found himself alone in his grief, having no one to completely understand his situation. The Garwood family was stuck in disbelief over one of their own committing a heinous act, but there were some amongst them who did not share that remorse. Leaked voice notes from family members soon populated social media, claiming that Andrea Lowe Garwood was a wicked woman. However, they were quickly denied even by family members and beyond, who confirmed that such a term could never be used to describe Andrea.
Man, wicked tip in them, man, make Garwood set out the whole line house, man, put the whole line money in our name, run out the little 14-year-old son, I think he's 14-year-old son, wicked. The guy would have about 3-4 bus the woman, run guard the insurance, claims everything, you know, because Garwood's first wife is dead. So he run got married to this woman, and this woman that claims everything left the youth them pan their face. all one house a Rosite, the woman wanting to sell, you know. When him first wife they build, you know. Brother, all the things that woman are going on with, you know, man. Yeah, man, I can go with wife, man. Because I see a picture, if I see a picture, the woman got the insurance out for the brand new bus, the woman claims every dollar, and don't give you them none, you know.
I want big story this time, because you can't marry to the man. Make the man selling house. Where you supposed to left this house where the man sell the wife by, you know, the first wife? Or the first wife buy the house that the man sell it to them buy. You understand? Because the lady, I know her very well. I know the first one. She's such a sweet lady. She used to work at one insurance company because she didn't try to get work for my daughter at the same insurance company. And the lady dead from cancer. And he buy the house. And they have one child together. You understand? But the man have other children. And this a woman that we did know. She let the man sell the house and then buy one different house. In a fair name, everything in a fair name. The boss say when the man have everything in a fair, go fit change over everything in a fair name to you know. She not fair. She not fair, and that is why she dead. And me talk, you know, me say God with people them, and not easy set of people them. I know easy set of people them. Me go to funeral and me and them in an argument about park, and me just drive right, left the funeral. Because me the one they come kill me up there, they come from mouthpiece, you know, and over here. You may tell you? Right, I went to the funeral. I mean, I didn't catch up with her. As I say, park. But God will make a good friend. She's very wicked. She's a very wicked woman. Very, very wicked. If you want to rob for the man, children, them. You can't do that. See, we're dead. See it there? God.
Meanwhile, the police and prosecutors worked overtime to secure a verdict against the criminals, and one of them would quickly betray the rest. Leon Hines quickly accepted a plea deal and agreed to cooperate with the police. He pleaded guilty to illegal possession of a firearm and accessory after the fact to murder, leading to the prosecutors dropping several other charges, including murder and conspiracy. He continued to share several testimonies in court, including one that would shock the judge and jury. Leon Hines recounted that in January 2021, he received a weird WhatsApp message from Dwight showing a photo of a large stack of $1,000 bills. Curious, Leon asked Dwight about the money, and Dwight responded that he had received $170,000 from Garwood for a piece of work. Leon claims that he believed Dwight was referring to legitimate construction work at Garwood's house in Rose Heights, but then he was promised a nice cut to be the getaway driver. This sent the courtroom into uproar, further mounting evidence against Javon as the mastermind. But then Leon revealed something that destroyed it all. Leon informed the court that Dwight never said what the money was for in the messages, leaving it open to interpretation. Leon could not directly connect this to the murder plot. This left it up to the murderer himself. His testimony could alter the course of the trial, but what path would he choose? Dwight Bingham, the shooter, decided to follow in Leon's footsteps. With the police and prosecution, Dwight agreed to testify against the alleged mastermind, Javon Garwood. Relief surged through the prosecution, but this would be short-lived because during Dwight's next court appearance, a shocking surprise would shatter their case. In a chilling turn, Dwight suddenly switched sides and refused to cooperate with prosecutors. For years, he remained adamant and stubborn about this, maintaining that he had nothing to say to anybody. Just like that, the connection to Javon was lost, and the prosecutors had nothing. However, Dwight still had some things to say. He accepted responsibility for his role in the death. On January 25, 2023, he was sentenced to 42 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. He joined Leon Hines, who had been sentenced on March 21, 2023, to 6 years in prison. But for the most controversial suspect, his verdict would leave many struggling to accept it. On July 13, 2025, due to a lack of evidence, Chief Justice Brian Sykes, the presiding judge overseeing Javon's trial, directed the jury to produce a verdict of not guilty against him. He maintained that over the last 2 years, they had hoped for Dwight to give Javon up, but in the absence of that, it was time to let Javon off the hook. Javon's defense attorney argued that there was no direct link, no messages, no voice notes, and no payments traced to Javon. just suspicion. In the end, the jury had no choice but to find him not guilty on all counts, a decision that shattered Andre Williams completely. The verdict sent ripples through Andrea's family and the broader community. Andre was dumbfounded by the verdict. He left the court, shaken, emotionally drained, and too sad to speak. He waved the cameras away and retreated to his daily life to mourn his mother in peace and grapple with the injustice. This story still continues to leave an impact on everyone. In the years since, the church has reopened its doors. Her family has tried to heal, and Andre has worked to carry on his mother's legacy of warmth and love. May her gentle soul rest in peace. Let me know what you think in the comments section below.